So I think we can jump into the agenda for tonight's public meeting. So we'll go through introductions. We have all the project partners here, and let me maximize this. We'll talk about the project background, the history of the lake and the park just a little bit. And there's two main components to the project here, the watershed improvements and in-lake improvements. And if you're not familiar with the term watershed, we'll define that for you in a minute. And then also, though, there are some overall improvements to the park, some amenities that we'll be adding or enhancing as well, either directly associated with this project or that are complementary to this project. And then as we wrap up tonight, I want to talk about the schedule and how users of the lake would be, what they'll see out there and how they might be impacted in terms of their use of the lake and the park. And then we will have time for some questions and answers at the end. We've got Craig and Stephen with Tama County Conservation. Stephen and Craig, you guys want to introduce yourselves briefly?
Yeah, thank you, Charles. My name is Stephen Main. I'm the new Tama County Conservation Director. I started last month, actually, and I'll pass it over to Craig.
Craig Wise, Maintenance Supervisor, Tama County Conservation Board.
Thank you, gentlemen. My name is Charles Eikenberry. I'm with FIRA Engineering. We are the engineering consultant on this project and helped with some of the preliminary study and analysis, and then as well as the design. And will be walking us through tonight's presentation. And also with FIRA is Carly Wagner, who's one of the project engineers and did a lot of the design work and the analysis for this effort. And then with DNR, we've got three folks with us. And George, I'll let you start there and just go down the list.
Sure, George Asania here, and I work with the DNR Lake Restoration Program, and so looking forward to tonight's discussion.
Hey everyone, my name is Michelle Balmer. I also work with DNR's Lake Restoration Program. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to join us for this presentation and bearing with us as we navigate newer technologies since we can't get together in person as easily. So thank you.
My name is Paul Sleeper. I'm the Area Fisheries Management Biologist.
Thank you, everyone. I'll give a little bit of the history and the background here, and then Craig, if you would like to jump in and note anything that I may leave out, please feel free to do that. The lake and the park, of course, are publicly owned and operated by Tama County Conservation. It's a 522-acre park with a 66-acre lake that was constructed in 1967. And the watershed to the lake is just under 1,000 acres. And if you're not familiar with the term watershed, it's another way to say that it is the drainage area to the lake. That amount of land, when it rains, it's the area of land that the rain will run off of and eventually make its way to the lake. And you can see a map of the watershed and the lake there off to the right-hand side. So about 1,000 acres, mostly a farm ground in addition to—
Hey, Charles?
Yes, George.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I do not have any presentation up on my screen right now.
Okay.
Am I the same as everyone else? Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, but.
Okay, let me reshare. You would think after a year plus of doing this, it would not be new technology, Michelle, but we're good to go again? Okay, thank you, George, for jumping in. Okay. So a watershed, as I described earlier, now you should be able to see the map that shows the watershed or the land that surrounds the lake that drains to the lake. After being built in the late 60s, Tama County staff quickly noticed that some things were changing in the lake. Water quality was decreasing and silt had begun accumulating already in the 1980s. Noticed a loss of lake depth and some areas at the upper end of the lake that were filling in with sediment. And that, of course, impacts the fishery and also just impacts recreation and how the lake looks. So as a result of that, conservation efforts got underway in the 1990s and early 2000s, focusing mainly on private lands in the watershed, implementing practices such as terraces and grassed waterways, things to help try and keep sediment from being transported through the watershed, making its way into the lake. And then later in the 2010 era, Tama County did a lot of work on the park itself, establishing native prairie, tall grass prairie plantings with long-rooted vegetation, very dense vegetation that really cuts down on the rainfall runoff and the amount of erosion that can impact the lake, as well as establishing wetlands and a couple of smaller sediment ponds, in addition to one very large sediment pond on the park ground. Craig, is there anything else you'd like to add about the background or the history of the lake or the park? Okay, we're good.
We're good. Go ahead.
We'll keep moving. So why are we here then? Despite all those past conservation efforts, which have been successful, the lake is still officially impaired. And what that really just means is EPA maintains a list of water bodies in the United States that don't fully support all of their intended uses. And so Otter Creek Lake is impaired because of low water clarity, which is most often attributed to algal blooms. And an algal bloom is just simply an excess amount of algae that are completely natural part of a lake ecosystem. But when they become too dense, you'll notice that murky green color, and it can affect aquatic life and recreation. And so the cause of that in Otter Creek Lake is twofold. Low water clarity is caused by both sediment, but also phosphorus. Now, phosphorus in and of itself is just a nutrient. There's nothing wrong with phosphorus. But what phosphorus can do is fuel a little excess growth of algae, which can create that green problem, that green color in the lake. So we want to try to reduce the amount of sediment and phosphorus entering the lake. And in some cases here in Otter Creek Lake, we're actually going to be exporting that material that's accumulated over time. We want to get it out of the lake. Again, algal blooms can be one consequence of that. We've seen sediment deposition in Otter Creek Lake, low water clarity because of that chocolate milk kind of appearance that can appear after a rainstorm. In extreme cases, these problems can actually lead to very low levels of dissolved oxygen and fish kills. Fortunately, we're not in that situation in Otter Creek Lake, but that's where an extreme case can lead. One of the key project partners here, obviously, is the DNR Lake Restoration Program, working across the state on publicly owned lakes to improve water quality. George or Michelle, I'll let you guys jump in here to describe your program and how your partnership with Tama County works.
Michelle, you want to go first or second? Do you have a preference? All right, I'll keep going then. And then we'll, okay. Charles, oh, where'd it go?
Sorry.
Charles did kind of lay out for you some of the framework of the program, I guess I would say. So for me, I won't go through and read those items. I'll more focus on our how fortunate we are to have a partnership there locally with your group. Kind of focus on that community aspect of this slide, and really that's what really allows us to be successful in the long run. Otter Creek Lake, like many of our constructed lakes in Iowa, are 50 years plus in age, and have a lot of issues that we need to address, as kind of has been presented before. We're very fortunate in this state that the state legislature has made a very long-term commitment, since going back to about 2007, in terms of funding a state program that allows us to partner and work with local groups to facilitate these type of projects. So we can't do it alone, and it's very difficult for local communities to put together projects of this scale, but together we kind of can put all the pieces together and try to move forward on these major restoration efforts. So just wanted to thank again the local staff there, Stephen and Craig, and also the neighbors for being so open to talking to people when we needed to stop by and ask them about their opinion on things and how we may or may not impact their property. So I'll just leave it at that and mute my mic and see if Michelle has any items that she'd like to talk with you as well.
No, really, I think George covered it all nicely. We just, again, want to reiterate how grateful we are to have the sustainable funding and the partnerships with groups like Tama County Conservation to be able to put stuff like this together. And I'm really excited to see this project come to fruition.
Thank you, George and Michelle. Other partners here include DNR Fisheries, and we've got Paul here, fisheries biologist, that can talk about that. Would you like to jump in here now, Paul, and just say a few things?
Sure. Along with the water quality, the habitat degradation, siltation, and vegetation issues, we also had some issues with the fish populations in the lake. The lake has both yellow bass and common carp, which are both undesirable fish species that we have. What the common carp do is, we talked a little bit about the phosphorus in the lake. They actually are constantly rooting around in the shallow, muddy areas, and they resuspend that phosphorus and actually lets that phosphorus get taken up more by the algae and has more algae blooms. So they're definitely not a desirable species in there. The yellow bass can cause a lot of competition with our bluegill and crappie populations that we've had a real struggle in the last 10, 15 years to really get a good quality population of bluegills and crappies in there. So by draining the lake, we'll be able to remove both these yellow bass and common carp. And then the lake will be restocked with largemouth bass, bluegills. We'll put some red ear sunfish in there and channel catfish. The second year after that, we will put in black crappie. We like to wait a year, let those largemouth bass get established before we put black crappie in the lake. So that'll all be done. And hopefully in about 2 to 3 years after that, we'll have a good fishable population again.
Thank you, Paul. And Paul will be available if there are questions, more detailed questions about the fishery. Paul will be available in the Q&A to answer some more questions as well. Another key partner at the DNR has been the Watershed Improvement Section, or the Section 319 program. Their involvement goes back a few years, helping develop the original watershed plan for the lake, and also a funding partner on this effort as well. And so I wanted to acknowledge their participation as well. And then obviously Tama County Conservation, maintaining the lake and the park around it with a nature center there. And Craig or Stephen, if you want to talk more about your program and your efforts at the park or your goals for this project, feel free to do that.
Sure. So we were able to acquire some of the highly erodible crop ground surrounding the east and north part of the park. We've got that planted into prairie and trees as well, to try and help stop some of that erosion. And again, with the wetlands that you mentioned earlier, we're getting support from our supervisors for funding for this project. We're hoping to get some additional help with Region 6 planning, Tama County Community Foundation, and hopefully some fish habitat grants as well.
Thank you, Craig. So watershed improvements, we will start there. One of the two main components of the efforts to improve water quality. So there are a number of existing ponds and best management practices around the lake now, which is a good thing, but they are approaching the end of their design life, so they need a little enhancement or rehabilitation. We'll use the term BMP a lot, and again, that stands for best management practice. And a BMP is just simply a structure or a land management technique that's designed to trap and treat sediment and other pollutants. And so when we use that term, we're really just talking about something to try to cut down on the amount of sediment and phosphorus reaching the lake. Here's a couple of photos of two of those existing features. One is going to be replaced. The one on the left is a small wetland at the north end of the lake that is silted in and has some issues with the outlet. And then the other one there on the right is BMP 5. We'll point that out to you on a map. That's on the west side of the park. And that is full of sediment. And you can see there the outlet structure is actually covered with grass and material. And so that's a bit outdated as well. So we'll be replacing that outlet structure. This is a map of the overall improvements to the lake and the surrounding areas. And I want to point out just a few things. Can you all see my cursor? Great. So this will be BMP 15 at the north end of the lake. There's a couple of smaller wetlands there that I showed earlier. We hope to construct a new, larger pond there to really maximize sediment and phosphorus trapping before it gets to the lake. The nice thing about doing that is it also does provide for some additional recreational opportunities as well. We've got a couple of smaller existing wetlands. We're just going to be doing a little bit of cleanup work and maintenance. BMP 5, that's that larger pond on the west side. Again, doing some dredging some sediment, removing some sediment from that pond, and also a new outlet structure. And then BMP 6, that also has a outlet structure that has been washed out or is essentially not functioning at all anymore. So we'll be replacing that and removing some sediment from that facility as well. Here's a photograph of the north end of the lake. This is actually the lake itself there at the very bottom edge of the photograph. We've got those two small wetlands. We'll be constructing a new pond here, again, to improve sediment trapping and to provide some recreation. An example of that, this is from a project that we designed in the Omaha metro area. But here you see a lake that is a new lake that's under construction, and the water quality basin has already been built upstream. This one is flowing north. And you can see that water quality basin doesn't look too good right now, but this was after a rain. You see that chocolate milk color there. That means that basin is functioning as we will want it to down the road when this lake is finished, keeping sediment out of the lake. So that's what we're doing with BMP 5 and BMP 15, both of those water quality ponds. Here's an image that was taken by a drone of BMP 5. This is west here. This is the West Park Road. And we'll be removing a lot of the material here. You can't see it, but it's not very deep at all here in this open water area. And that outlet structure sits in the corner, and we'll be repairing and replacing that as well. In-lake improvements, Carly's going to talk about some of the dredging and shoreline improvement features of this project.
Yeah, so our two main components when we do in-lake improvements are to improve the shoreline and add erosion protection and add fish habitat, but we also dredge the lake to enhance the depth. This is kind of an overview map of what we will be doing. The blue portions are where we plan to dredge the lake, and dredging is just taking out sediment that has accumulated over time. And then we will also be adding shoreline protection, which are the locations in gray. We will also be adding fish habitat and enhancing some jetties, and we will actually be making 2 new jetties. This is an overall concept drawing. As you can see, we like to have easy access to the shoreline and then add some protection there to help erosion, and then deepen the lake and add some habitat. And this just provides an overall enhanced experience for lake users. So these are jetties, and jetties just is a piece of land that goes into the lake to allow fishers or users deeper water access. And we build them with earth and put rock around them to help erosion.
And both of these jetties actually result from prior lake restoration efforts. George and Michelle, one at Storm Lake on the right, and you might know, George and Michelle, the one on the left, what lake that is from. But
That's Pleasant Creek Lake.
Okay, so very typical, and we've got a few of those showcase jetties features at Otter Creek Lake as well.
This is an example of some fish habitat. We like to put it fish habitats closer to shore so people have easy access when they're fishing. So to dredge the lake, we will be using mechanical dredging for this project, which is just taking sediment out again. We will be taking about 150,000 cubic yards out of the lake, which is If you were to stack it on a football field, it would be about 90 feet high. This is an overall view. If you were to go out to the lake during construction, you would see dump trucks getting filled with sediment, and then they will be taken to a spoils containment site that Charles will talk about next.
And this is also an active lake restoration project over on the eastern side of the state in the Quad Cities area. This is Lake of the Hills. Actually, this is a smaller lake called Railroad Lake, just upstream of Lake of the Hills. So that one's still getting wrapped up, but that's what you can expect to see out at Otter Creek Lake eventually. Carly mentioned that material that comes out of the lake, that dredged sediment, we've got to put that somewhere. And so here's an example, again, at Lake of the Hills, where we design a site to contain that material. So this is on a hillside here, and you'll notice we'll put a small sediment basin down at the bottom end of this. We want to make sure that any material that comes out of the lake, out of these red circles, and is stacked here, this is just a nice place for that material to dry out. It will actually consolidate. So Carly's number of 90 feet on a football field, that's when it's pretty wet. After it dries down over time, that'll consolidate by about 30% typically. And but nonetheless, we want to make sure that material stays put so that it doesn't make its way back to the lake. We have a few of these sites around Otter Creek Lake that we will point out. Now, how are we going to do that? Obviously, it's pretty difficult to do work in the bottom of the lake with all that water there. So we do need to get the water out of the lake itself. And in Otter Creek Lake, we won't be altering the existing spillway where water exits the lake. You can see that off to the top of the photo here. That spillway is working just fine, but it just does not have the ability to drain the lake like you could drain a bathtub. So part of this project will be to actually include or incorporate that kind of facility. So we'll be adding a drawdown structure and a drawdown pipe towards the middle of the dam. So we'll actually have to open that dam up a little bit. We'll be notching it, letting the water out, and then putting that structure in. And then in the future, if Tama County needs to do maintenance, whether it's for future shoreline work or future dredging or future fish renovations, it will be much more cost effective for them to do that in the future. And this just reviews kind of those locations of some of the features that we just walked through, where some of the dredging and the shoreline work and the jetties will be constructed. Those gray areas on this map will be the soils containment sites. So that's where we'll be hauling material out of the lake, storing it in these sites here. We have up to 3 locations. We're going to give the contractor a little bit of flexibility. They may only need 2 of those 3 locations. So some of those details we're still working out and will be up to the contractor to some extent. But we've got an area here on the west side of the lake, up to the northwest, one on the east side of the lake, just south of the public hunting area, and then to the south near where the former house used to be, the ranger residence down there on the southeast corner. I mentioned some of the other improvements to the park itself, other amenities. This is a drone image taken of the existing beach and playground area on the east side of the lake. This is just north of the nature center. And so this area will be getting a bit of a facelift, and we will be moving this parking lot here. We'll be shifting that to the west so that people won't have to cross the road. The roadway will be realigned just slightly, and we'll be improving runoff or drainage to the beach. Right now, water runs across the beach a little bit. We're going to make sure that we take care of that little drainage issue. And so that's going to be a real nice feature that a lot of people will really experience firsthand and see. It will be a very obvious improvement to the park. Here is a rendering by Confluence. These are the landscape architects that are helping with this component of the project. That existing parking lot here, if you can see my cursor, is tucked in here. We'll be moving it across the road here. We will be saving those 3 campsites that people can camp near the playground and the beach and watch their kids play and that sort of thing. And then just improving the drainage again. We don't have actual playground equipment picked out yet. So these are just examples. I want to be very clear, just examples of some more natural looking, modernized type of playground equipment. that you might see, something typical of what you might see when we're all finished here at Otter Creek Lake. Craig, did you have anything you wanted to add to those improvements to the park itself that I missed?
We're hoping to get some more natural playscape type items, maybe a water feature in there, something less maintenance, and also more natural looking, like you mentioned as well. Hopefully we'll be able to add a kayak launch somewhere within the park as well.
Yep. And some of these improvements, some of the main infrastructure that I mentioned, those improvements will be done as part of this project, so you'll see it right away. Some of those improvements may come down the road just a little bit as funding and opportunities allow. I do want to talk about schedule. We've got a late entrance here. I'm going to admit somebody here. Hopefully that doesn't mess up our technology. So schedule is obviously very important. People that use the lake and the park will see some changes beginning already in June. The first phase of construction is currently out for bids, so we're soliciting bids from contractors, and they are scheduled to break ground as early as June, working on the west side of the lake. Those smaller ponds and wetland features, BMPs, on the west side of the lake. So you'll see that happen in June. And then we'll get through the 4th of July and get most of the recreation season in. And at that point, you may start to see the water level start to drop in the lake, as a contractor will be able to, or will be allowed to start bringing that lake level down a little bit after the 4th of July holiday. We would anticipate that lake would be completely drained or nearly completely drained this fall. Obviously, we get a 3 or 4 inch rainfall event, that lake's going to fill back up a little bit temporarily, and that'll be something that the contractors will have to deal with. But we'll bring the lake down in the fall to begin on those in-lake improvements that Carly described for us. And then after the water level is drawn down, we can start beginning to construct that larger pond upstream, and again, doing the dredging and the shoreline improvements. What that will mean for park users is that this summer we'll have to close the west road to the west side of the park because there'll be very heavy construction activity, moving material and equipment on the west side of the lake. Again, then after the 4th of July holiday, Tama County will pull their floating docks and will begin to limit or restrict watercraft and people out on the water. We don't want anybody out on the water when we're working on the dam for safety reasons. And then later, after Labor Day, once we really go full force into the in-lake work, the east side of the park will need to be shut off as well. And then one other thing, unfortunately, is that public hunting area. One of our spoil sites is up in this area. And while the contractors are working here, we're going to need to close that public hunting area as well. And Craig and the county will handle all the notifications and the precautions for that. Correct, Craig?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. George or Michelle, anything from your perspective to add to the schedule notes?
No, we just, there's always a little bit of tentativeness with some of these because Mother Nature can throw us, as you've mentioned, curveballs, but this is our best estimate for what it will take to get done.
Very good. And that is really all that we had to present formally. We are armed with all the supporting information and can answer questions. I hope that some folks, I will see if I can check the chat bar here. Maybe if someone else can see that right now, because I'm sharing my screen, I'm not able to. Do we have any questions? Feel free to also to unmute yourselves in the lower left if you want to just verbally ask a question. You don't have to exclusively use the chat, whatever you're more comfortable with. We do hope at a minimum you folks would sign in, at least leave a first name and kind of your interest in the lake.
Charles, there is a chat from Amanda. Any additional requests or needs from the landowners around the lake? And so maybe between you and the county, any additional outreach or information you need?
I'll go first, and then Craig and Stephen, you can jump in. We don't need anything from adjacent landowners. We were very intentional, as was Tama County and DNR, to not affect private land really in any way with this project. So there'll be no access required by the contractors on private lands or anything like that. The Sawyer family, that as Amanda mentioned, they're probably the most directly impacted, just because BMP 5 does back up water very near to that property line, and they were sent some information, I believe, Craig, some pretty detailed information about what that feature will look like for them in the future. But other than that, I think just hopefully your patience with us as we get construction underway, and as Michelle noted, weather dictates everything, kind of like farming. And so we'll do the best we can to be neat and orderly and prompt with everything, but we're at the mercy of weather a little bit in that respect. And then just obviously just kind of respecting the need to close off certain portions of the park for a time as we make these really exciting improvements. So that's my perspective. Craig?
Yes, so we did send the letters out to adjoining landowners, and we have not received anything back saying that they need anything extra from us at this point. And again, we do not intend on encroaching on their property at all. Actually, BMP 5 will be better because it'll actually lower water level when we're completed with it, which should help slow some of the water back up. That's all I have.
Okay. I wouldn't expect a great deal of extra traffic in the area because the park is so large, and once they've mobilized to the site, there won't be a lot of heavy equipment running on public roads, just the park roads themselves. So that's kind of a plus, being out in the rural environment. So I think impacts to landowners will be minimal, other than when everything's done and finished and improved. Any other questions from attendees? Again, if you can pull up the chat, there's a chat menu at the bottom. You could type your questions in, or you could unmute yourself. We got somebody else maybe trying to jump in. I don't see any other questions in the chat, just some nice comments, people excited. Appreciate that. Thanks for sticking with us through the technical difficulties. I apologize for my part in that, but we made it. We don't want to cut this short. If you got questions about the fisheries, you know, we can talk more in detail about some of the habitat improvements, but in large part, it's just adding structure, adding spawning beds, things that make the fish happy and want to stick around. And okay. Any last words from Stephen or George or Michelle?
Nothing to add, just thank you for walking us through it. That's appreciate that.
It's always an adventure.
We just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight to see what is all that we have planned, and thank you, Charles, for your work, and also the DNR too, with all of your hard work to put this together. It's an exciting time for Tama County, and especially for Otter Creek Park.
And I don't have a link in the presentation to the DNR's YouTube channel, but if you just Google or search for Iowa DNR YouTube, it will be the first link you come across. Give us a couple days to get through any other technical difficulties we might have, but we will get that posted. And please let your friends and neighbors know that we're not able to attend tonight that might be interested, that will be available for viewing, basically to see and hear everything that you folks did tonight. And you could certainly send your questions to Tama County or to any of us affiliated with the project. Our contact information is pretty readily available. And I can even put my email address here in the chat bar in case anybody has questions about anything related to the design. I'll leave that up here just for a minute or two if people want to scribble that down. Well, thank you, everybody. George and Michelle, I'll be in touch here tomorrow or the day after with the means of getting that posted on your site. We can talk offline about what I need to provide you with.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And I believe the county also has some information at the Nature Center, correct?
Yes.
If folks are seeking that out, that there'll be
Yeah,
some
we
boards
do.
and things for folks stopping by.
Yes, yep, we do. It's at the front entrance.
Thank you, Michelle. The two maps that showed aerial photographs and all the features with kind of the markups and the highlights, we have two large posters on display at the Nature Center, and then a project summary that you can easily take home with you, and that answers a lot of the questions that hopefully we answered tonight as well, but just to have that information in front of you. So thanks for that reminder, Michelle. Well, everybody have a good night. Thanks again, and reach out to me if you do have any other questions, and I can either answer those myself or funnel them through the proper channels with DNR or Tama County. Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.